This is the Smallmouth Crush podcast. If you're a hardcore angler, you've come to the right place. This is a weekly podcast that will interview some of the top smallmouth bass anglers in North America. Travis and his guest will discuss what it takes to consistently catch big smallmouth, and you'll get a glimpse inside the mind of a trophy smallmouth angler. And now, here's your host of the Smallmouth Crush podcast, Travis Manson.
Hello, welcome to the Smallmouth Crush podcast. My name is Travis Manson. Another great week talking smallmouth fishing. We're coming to an end here. Season 1. What a successful season. A lot of great information. A lot of amazing anglers that we talked to. Today's angler is no different. He's going to share a lot of great information when it comes to catching smallmouth, specifically in Wisconsin, but I'm sure you can use these techniques all across the country to help you catch more smallmouth. But before we get into it, let's talk, of course, about The Real Shot. They've been the sponsors of the podcast all season, and they're my go-to shop, and they should be for you as well. All fishing related. They got a lot of hunting stuff as well, so if you're into hunting, I'd certainly check out therealshot.com. And here's the cool part. We're going to use my code, SmallmouthCrush15, on your next order. You're going to get 15% off your order. Anything. Fishing, hunting. I know it's the fall. I know it's that time of year. But a lot of great products in there. Mega Bass, Kitech, Evergreen, Demiki, VMC, Rapala. You guys know the drill. Z-Man. Head on over there. Check them out. And use my code SmallmouthCrush15 and take 15% off your first order. Let's bring on our next guest. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Travis. Thank you.
Excited to have you on the show. I know you caught a few smallmouth before in the past. I mean, what's a few? I don't know, 25,000 plus?
That's right.
What's the number today?
Well, the number today is 26,625 since catching my first in May of 1994. I got kind of back into fishing later in my life after being fishing as a kid. I got back into fishing in 1991 and a little bit, and then mainly in 1992. And I'm happy that, just like with my swimming career many decades ago and my longtime racquetball career, I kept a log. So I know my numbers, and caught that first one in May of 94. It took me about 4 years to really get into it. Over those 4 years, maybe another 800 or 900. But as of yesterday at 9:30 on the Milwaukee River, I was at 26,625. And what's been amazing, I guess I'm into my numbers this year. My first goal this year was to hit my 25,000, which happened on August 4th. And then over the next 38 days, I jumped to 26,000. And it's been crazy. I'm at just a hair under 2,500 for 2021, which surpasses my all-time best year back in 2007, where I had just over 2,000. My goal every year is 1,000, and okay. I don't hit it every year. I hit it most years, but this year, I guess I've hit so many this year, I could probably not fish for the next 2.5 years and still hit my goal.
Well, I don't think you'll be doing that. I'm sure you're going to. So what's the lifetime goal? What are we going to hit, man? What's your plan?
I have to tell you, it's funny. I didn't really start thinking about the numbers, honestly, until I was approaching 20,000. And I hit, that year I was, and we'll talk a little bit about this. The fishing was still a little better up in Sturgeon Bay and Door County than it is today. And I know I hit the water on June 7th that year, needing 2 fish to hit 20,000. And I didn't know, was it going to be a 2-pounder? I mean, you fished up there, or was it going to be something bigger? And what was great was 19,999 was 2 pounds and 20,000 was 4.5. Sure. And I did the same thing this year. I stopped on the river with my waders. I remember on August 2nd at 39 smallmouth in a couple of hours, saving the last 2 for back to Door County. And right. I hit the lakeside north, and it was an extremely slow day, which is not unusual now. But all I know is that 24,999 was 2 pounds. And very fortunately, 25,000 was again 4.5 pounds. So I don't know. It's fun for me. again, you're a great competitive tournament guy. I'm competitive. I don't fish tournaments. I'm competitive with my numbers. I'm an athlete. I'm in the Wisconsin Racquetball Hall of Fame. I'm competitive, but for fishing with me, it's sort of my numbers. And as I get older, keeping track of those numbers is good for my mind.
Sure.
Hopefully, it'll keep me sharp for a long time.
Well, one thing I noticed in this podcast, especially over the last year, talking with some of these great smallmouth anglers, number one is something I want to do in the future is keep a log book, and more specifically, kind of conditions. And, we forget so much. And the fact that you have a log of numbers caught, that's pretty cool. I have a ton of questions, but before we go any further, Bill, can we step back a little bit for people that are not familiar with yourself? Could you give a quick intro, where you came from, your background, and obviously you're from Wisconsin, some of the bodies of water that you fish on a regular basis and whatnot?
Yeah, I again, like I said, I fished as a kid living in Madison, Wisconsin, went to the University of Wisconsin, was on the swimming team. Things get, busy. After that, it was racquetball. Might be the only guy in the United States that's played racquetball in 7 decades. And so the fishing went away. But on the water in northern Wisconsin of the brother-in-law's dad's resort in 1991, I'm out there and the bug hit me again. Then the next winter you buy a boat at the boat show, and pretty soon you're out fishing. And like I kept the log. And what was fun was, I got involved in 1998 with St. Croix Rod. And to be honest with you, my question was, why? And I figured I better do something to make sure that they like me. And that's when I started doing, writing articles. And it was the next year that I did my first talk at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Sports Show. And it's been kind of fun because the almost 20 plus years since, I've had over 10,000 people at my talks. I've done over 100 articles. I've got my own Smalley group that is now at 1,000 guys that are all people that have come to my talks are asked to be involved. And so for me, it's fun. It's now that I'm retired, it's even more fun. And you asked a good question. For me, I love the smaller rivers. I find them as I do in my talks. I say, once you learn, they're pretty easy to read, and they don't get fished a lot. And you get in your waders, you jump in your car, you can go anywhere. And along the whole southern part of Wisconsin and up through your hometown area, up through northeast Wisconsin, there's lots of rivers that are great to wade. And the fun thing is lots of smallies, a lot of little smallies, as you know. For me, on a river, I don't note size unless they're 2 pounds, and there aren't that many of those on the rivers I fish. And in the Door County, my pictures only start at 4 pounds, and I'm also using the Boga grip 3,500 world records because I'm kind of, as you would guess, a little anal about being accurate. I want to know an accurate weight. I want to know an accurate length occasionally. But so the little rivers in southern part of Wisconsin, mostly southeast, southwest, and Sturgeon Bay, Door County. And in 2015, my wife and I bought a small home up there. So I'm up there even more. Prior to 2015, I only fished up there in May and June. And after 2015, I try to fish up there often. Again, I can get into it a little bit because I've pushed the DNR more than most, but it's been tough up there. I mean, there still can be great days, but off the record, if you talk to your guide friends, most are struggling. And it's been just a ton of pressure. It's not just the pressure, but since Bassmasters named it number 1 and number 2 in 2014 and 15, my log numbers in May and June have dropped by more than 50%. And I can tell you that it's been tough. And in fact, this year, not that their rankings are scientific, this year Sturgeon Bay did not make the top 25 in the Central Division. So there's something going on, and hopefully it bounces back. Yeah,
hopefully it's a cycle. I mean, we see that, back when I lived in Wisconsin, it was definitely good fishing. I come back there quite a bit. It's still good. It's just a little tougher. You got to put a little bit more work in. Obviously, it's not as easy as it used to be.
Right.
But we're seeing that on Lake Ontario as well. Bassmasters named it one of the top fisheries in the world. Of course, there's a lot more boats, boat trailers in the parking lots now, and so there is definitely some fishing pressure. And of course, we have a unique thing up on Lake Ontario where our guides actually keep a lot of the smallmouth, as opposed to some of the guides in Wisconsin where it's more catch and release. Yeah, it's
nobody. A rare case this summer. I saw one of my guide friends, an outstanding guide, and he was out with some guys that were good anglers, and I could see something weird, and they did have a fairly good sized smallie that was being kept, but the problem was it had a problem when they caught it, and these guys one guy's a taxidermist, so it didn't go to waste, but it's a rare case where it almost never happens with the guys.
No. Which I think is great. For obviously the fishery and the education. I just don't know, for some reason, that part of Lake Ontario I fish, there's a core group of people that love to have smallmouth bass for a shore lunch, and it happens every day.
It would be very difficult for me. I have to be careful. You're well known where you are, and I'm driving around with a boat with my name on the engine, and I have to be really careful when I see people, bed fishing or things that I don't like. I can't. I have to be. If anything, if I educate, I have to be very nice.
Sure. No, I
try to. And
I totally get it. Yep.
Yeah.
So these rivers that you fish, the smaller streams, things like that, is this something that you can? I'm assuming. So the smallmouth season, is that open year round now in Wisconsin?
No. Well, it is.
I guess my question with that is, do you fish during the winter months in some of these streams? Okay.
No, I pretty much, it's getting, I don't want to be too much of a wimp, but I want to wait till the weather's a little better. So
sure.
Pretty much, it's the typical opening season, early May through, I'll be going back up Sturgeon Bay in a couple of days for a week. And then depending on the long range, I may hit that first week in November, then the boat gets winterized. But I've got my Jackson kayaks. I've got trailers in both locations, Malone trailers. I'll hit the river, the Milwaukee River, maybe the Wisconsin River. I've fished as late as early December. But it's just weather dependent.
What's your favorite time to fish those rivers?
Well, funny, I would say probably midsummer through the end of October. Because I've been keeping a little closer look at the numbers. This summer I've had 5 or 6 days at 4 hours, 5 hours at 100 smallmouth, and I still haven't. The only record I haven't broke, I've got back in the 2000s at a Southwest Wisconsin river. I have 134 smallie 6-hour day, and I've come close this year. But I did look at October. If the weather, it's been great here. September, October can be super, but typically with spring being usually wet, sometimes I don't fish rivers until after July 4th.
Okay,
and that was almost the case this year. I fished a little earlier, a few days, but most of it's come after July 4th.
Do you find yourself going back to the same stretches, or do you like to explore? Or are you looking for new water? What's your motivation when it comes to catching fish out of a river?
Well, one of the things that I try to do, and we're going to talk about lures, and I'm holding up a little bitty cereal bowl. And I'm not exaggerating. You look at 26,600 and whatever smallmouth, most have come on what's in this little bowl.
Well, we're going to have to talk about that.
We are. And with the rivers, I like to explore. It's a key word I use in my river talks where I say, look, I used to say, get the Wisconsin Gazetteer. Now I say, get on Google Maps. do some exploring. You'd be amazed at what you're going to find. You get away from the bridges and the dams. There are stretches of all the rivers that have never seen a fishing lure. Mm-hmm. And so I like to explore. However, I'm also, because of this wanting to, the numbers, I want to get to places that are going to be productive. And probably going back to with the rivers, fishing my first rivers in the mid 1990s, I know pretty much where to go. Mm-hmm. Yet I've done some exploring this year, and on the Milwaukee River, and found a stretch that is somewhat near where I usually go, but it's new to me, and it's been actually pretty good. Again, people have to realize most of these smaller rivers, this isn't the Susquehanna where people are holding up 5 and 6 pound smallmouth. The pyramid is, take yesterday, the couple hours, 30 fish. There was a 2 pounder, and there was 4 or 5 1.5s. And then there was a lot of just fat little, 9, 10, 11 inches. Mm-hmm. It's still fun in the current though.
Right. So some key baits. Let's talk about that cereal bowl and what we're dealing with.
Well, okay, we're going to do that because we're going to start off with the little lure that was my first, and still is, greatest river lure. I bought one of these in 1995 and used it on a pond the very first time and caught 2 big bluegills. And I thought, this is great. And it's the little Rebel teeny wee crawfish.
Okay.
1.25 inches long, number 14 trebles, but you'll see I actually change out the back treble to a number 8 or 10, which really helps. They don't bend and break. But I have to tell you that of my number of smallies, probably by the end of this year, about 15, 16,000 have come on rivers, and probably 5,000, 6,000 have come on the teeny wee crawfish. For these little rivers that are 2-3 feet deep, even a foot, 2 feet, this little guy swims. I'm getting confused with but nose down, bounces off the rocks and things, and it's got a tight wiggle. It's got a pretty neat profile. It's a winner. And the last couple of years, going away a little bit from it, it's come back big time. So that's that. Over my smallie lifetime, I've probably fished the Rebel teeny wee crawfish as much as anything. In fact, color doesn't always make a huge difference, because I think it's the size, the profile, and the tight wiggle that attracts the smallies. And again, going with the larger back treble. I'm not, everything you're going to see me talk about except for this, no trebles, all single hooks. But this is still not a very big treble, so I don't find it being a problem.
What are you throwing that on a spinning rod?
I am. It's funny. I'm 100% spinning rods. Being involved with St. Croix each of the last, 20 years, every couple of years, I get a bait caster, and it sits there for a year or two, never gets used. So, I'm 100% spinning. And the other thing is, with what I do, if you look at, let's just look at, it doesn't matter what series, but if you look at the rods that I've used on the rivers this year, they're all 6'9", medium light extra fast, 6'10", medium light extra fast. That's it. That's a rod that can throw the little teeny wee crawfish, throws the other things I'm going to talk about, enough backbone that you get the fish in quickly. When you look at Sturgeon Bay, if you would have, one of the things I'll mention, which I used for the first time on August 1st of 2016, was the Ned Rig with the green pumpkin goby TRD. Okay?
Chartreuse head, yes.
Chartreuse head, which I started using in 2017. Let me just tell you that if you would have asked me in 2018, Bill, what's the absolute best rod for this presentation, which since August 1st of 2017, we're looking at 5,000 smallmouth on the Ned Rig, with 99% coming on green pumpkin goby TRD. I would have said, hey, 6'9", 6'10", 7 foot medium light extra fast. Well, on August again, a log helps, Travis, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to think I'm a genius with these dates. But August 12th of 2018, on the lakeside north, I lost 4 or 5 big, not 4-pound, 5 to 6-pound smallies using my Ned Rig. And all I could figure was my medium light rods for that big fish was
Mhm.
just not enough backbone to sink the little, I'm using 1/15 and 1/10 ounce jigs.
Sure.
And so the next year, 2019, I went to, and I stick with that. Up there, I'm using 6'10" medium extra fast,
Okay.
and 7-foot medium extra fast. And this year with their Victory Series, I love their 7.3 medium extra fast. So there's pretty much the rivers are that length, medium light extra fast, and up there it's just a little more backbone. And so those are the rods I'm using for these presentations. And we're talking presentations. Certainly the Ned Rig, it can be great on rivers too. The negative is all these rivers have a ton of rock. So be prepared to lose a lot of jigs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the Z-Man, their Ned locks.
Yes.
They're
Yep.
really nice keeper,
Mhm.
or the little Shrooms, which has a keeper, and they're nice too. I like the Ned locks a little better because the hook is better. It's thicker.
Yes.
And it's not
I
gonna-
throw just like you. I'm a huge fan of the Ned Rig, and that is the exact setup I throw. Now I'm a little, not saying to each their own. I'm still a 7-foot medium light on those Ned Rigs as far as a rod goes.
I have to tell you, for when I first used the Ned Rig, August 1st of that year, it's hilarious. I had been asked by a friend, hey, you want to meet me over on the Oconto River? You obviously know with our kayaks. And I go, oh God, that's 90 miles. I have 90 miles from my house up there. Hell, I'm not going to go. So I went out to one of the islands on the Green Bay. I sat with my spot lock for 1 6-hour period. I did 62 smallmouth with a bunch of 4-pounder. I'm going, this is interesting. So later in the month of August, I'm on a little river in southwest Wisconsin, 4 hours. The first 1 hour, I caught 15 smallies on this little Booyah buzzbait, the little bitty guy. It's fun. But then the next 3 hours, I went to the 1/15 ounce with both the tubesy, the little tube,
Yep.
and the TRD. I ended after 4 hours with 82 smallmouth and some bigger ones, because this was getting down, even if the deep area might only be 3 feet, it was getting down there where some of the bigger fish were. Bigger on a little river, 2.5 pounds. So now, I'm not from Missouri, but I'm starting to become a believer. Well, I went back to this island on September 2nd. We're talking a 1-month period, 3 times out. I sat for 5 hours at 57 smallmouth, and I'm going, this is unbelievable, this Ned Rig. And so for me, it's been, a huge part of my arsenal since then. And it still is really good, but I have to tell you, and I'm going to jump back, and I hope you don't mind me jumping back. But, and again, I remember my second to the last day on the water in 2007 up there. And I'm south of Sturgeon Bay, and I see another guy who I recognize as a St. Croix guy. And my brother's with me, and we putt over, and I go, hey, how you doing? And he told us how he was doing. It was better than us. I go, gee, what are you using? Typically I wouldn't do this, but I knew the guy.
Sure.
Well, I'm using the Kalen's Lunker grub. I go, you're kidding. I said, I use these little bitty skinny grubs. They're okay. He goes, well, here. And he reaches in and he gives my brother and I like a double handful. So probably the equivalent of 3 or 4 packages. And my brother's going, can we pay you for those? He goes, no. Okay, thanks. Well, between that day and the next day, I ran out. And I literally remember tying my boat up on that last day when Howie's tackle was downtown. And I ran the 6 blocks and bought 2 packages. Well, that's 2007. And I'll just give you, I'm holding up here a 4-inch Kalin's Lunker grub in blue pearl salt and pepper, because this is the best and the only color I use on rivers.
Okay.
The color, and I got the log. So in 2014, in my opinion, the last year that the fishery was truly world class in Sturgeon Bay, in May and June I caught 714 smallmouth. Every one, not 700, every one came on the 4-inch, the color smoke, salt, and pepper with the gopher tackle jig in either the 1/16 or the get myself here right, or the 3/32. And so, obviously I had some tremendous 10 years or more with it's still a great presentation. I use it more on the rivers, but that's just something that I've used. I've had the argument, and Travis, do you remember years ago, do you remember Tim DeWittiak?
Yes. Yeah.
Tim was a top guide up there. He's not guiding anymore. Tim and I he owned Howie's early on, but we'd have the discussion, 4-inch or 5-inch. And again, they both work. I just felt that the slightly smaller profile for me worked better than the 5-inch. So that was just another great presentation that still is phenomenal on the rivers. And on the rivers, I'll even go down to the 3-inch, which I think, my opinion, a lot of guys will say, hey, big is what you should use to catch big fish. I think small catches everything. That's my opinion. I'm a finesse guy, 100%. And so that I've kind of given you leading into, the Ned Rig with the Z-Man products kind of brings me into the last couple of or 3 years. What I've been real excited about, because it's been real successful for me, and I used it for the first time really in the fall of 2019 with great success, and that was the Kitech. This 2.8. This is the 2.8. And I have to tell you that at that time I had 3/8 and 3/3, and the 3/3 outfished the 3/8. Last year I began using the 2.8, and this is what I use.
Sure.
And the fat swing impact I usually use something that's got a darker color up top and a lighter color on the bottom.
It's hard to see. Is that like a rainbow shad, or?
I think this might be just the shad.
Shad,
but,
okay.
You're right. Shad, black shad, goby, rainbow shad, silver flash, smoke, silver. These are all the colors that I use. Surprisingly, I don't use their smallmouth magic, but these have been really, really good. I mean, obviously, and everyone who uses them knows the negative is they are very fragile. And you say, hey, what's your record number of fish on a Kitech? And someone say, I caught 3. Holy mackerel, 3. Sure. I mean, many times after one fish, they're shot. I will tell you that on the rivers, what's interesting is I've literally, you bite off the end and you try to rethread it, you turn it over. I've literally, when they've gotten 2/3 of the way down, I've hooked that onto the jig like a minnow, just letting it swim behind, and it doesn't make, on the rivers, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. So I've been a big fan, and this year it's been, for the very first time, 1 week ago, not 1 week ago, it was about 10 days ago, I did the drop shot. Very first time on October 1st. And I had pretty good luck, to be honest with you. And I'm going to be, I've got the weights. I've got the VMC spin shot, which makes it easy. I've got different things that work, even though I have had just in the last 2 weeks, a number of guys note they like using the TRD on their drop shot because it's buoyant with that Elastec plastic. So it gives a little different look. But I'm going to do more drop shotting. But I've been really pleased with how well the 2.8 has done, even in these tougher conditions this year. It's been probably my best presentation up there, and it's been really, really, really good on the rivers. The other thing that, again, I try to keep things simple. I mean, the KISS, keep it simple, Schultz. I got an email from a guy from New Jersey 2-3 weeks ago, just had read some of my articles and things. And he said, Bill, thank you. You've saved me time and money because you've put me right to things that work and not that much. I mean, it's not that many items, but I will tell you that 2 things in the last, and I'm going to grab the other one. These have, and just literally in the last month, have become phenomenal little river lures. One being the swing impact, the little skinny version of what I showed you, 3 inches. It's really, really, really good. The other one being the Kitech little easy, the Easy Shiner, which again, 3 inches. It's really, really good. I took some video with my phone of this swimming in current to give people the idea of the tail movement. And this is not just great, it's phenomenal. I saw that my friends at Tradition Media put out a release on 2 guys, one I know quite well, who got 100 bass on a Z-Man product.
Sure.
And then I emailed my key guy at Z-Man last week and I said, hey, I just want you to know that I took this off at 150. I didn't have to. I just thought I would.
Right.
Well, this is the little Slim Swims.
Yep.
It comes in a 2.5 and a 3. I think this is a 2.5. I actually kind of like the 3 a little bit better. And so there you go. I mean, that the swing impact, the Easy Shiner, and the Slim Swims are 3 new things that just have been tremendous on the rivers. And I'm thinking that all 3 could be actually pretty decent drop shot lures. And I think we'll see what happens with some just swimming them up in Sturgeon Bay. So these are this is it. That's what I'm using. I mean, almost 2,500 this year. You just saw, I haven't caught any on the little Booyah buzzbait. I haven't used that this year, but everything else. So it is pretty simple. I mean, if I'm out in my kayak, I'm out in the waders, I do not have to, in the kayak, I mean, literally a
small little pack of tackle.
A Ziploc bag. Yeah. Or if I'm in one of my paddle kayaks, it's got the nice little hatch. Hey, I can put all my lures, my water, my phone, my camera, a few extra rags, and I still have room because I'm not taking, the kitchen sink. And that's my deal. I just like I want to get to the places that I'm going to be able to have success quickly. I also don't want to be messing around with a lot of different lures. It's amazing how little works so well. And I guess my numbers, it's not like, oh yeah, I caught like 500 smallmouth this year. These are really great lures. No, I'm catching thousands, and these are really great lures.
Sure. Yeah, keeping things simple. I'm with you. I went through phases, all these different colors, things like that. I do have it narrowed down now, and a lot of the baits that you talked about, I can't disagree. That Easy Shiner, that 2.8, those are baits that I always have with me, and they're always tied on. And of course, that TRD.
I've got a Jackson Cruiser FD, which is really nice with the pedals because it almost like the spot lock. If I'm in rougher water, especially, that's up in Sturgeon Bay, it can hold me. It's really good. But I can tell you that a couple days after opening day a year ago, I'm somewhere else in Door County on a smaller body of water where the winds are gusting to 30 miles an hour straight down this body of water. And I'm at the end that's getting the worst of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a paddle kayak, a big one, but a paddle kayak. I'm out there catching, I got 3 fish that were 5 pounds, and I'm catching them on this. And it's like, I'm still fishing when I should be getting off the water, not that I'm afraid, but it's like, I'm paddling back to where I launched, and I'm for the first time looking at the shore, wondering if I'm making any progress. So I've had just really, really good luck. But you and Travis, in your questions, you asked, and we've talked around, size and things like this. I've got a Canon, their first version of their water, their underwater camera, and I think that Canon D10 probably has taken more pictures of big smallmouth than any other camera in the world, mainly because I've been using it for many years. Not that other people aren't catching that as many or more, but the thing that I try to do is, I've got the thing mounted on my windshield of my boat with a RAM camera mount. It's great because I can, hit the self timer, stand there and smile and get that fish. I get them in extremely fast, as fast as anyone I've seen, and I get them back in the water really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've been talking about, the 3 little swim baits that I just talked about, those are new to me. And It's like, hey, I tried them. They're phenomenal. And for me, before I communicate on this podcast or to my group or put them in one of my talks, be honest with you, it's not like, hey, Bill, here's this great lure. We're going to give you some. Would you tell people about it? No, I need to use it and have great success. I remember when I started talking about the Kalen's Lunker grub, only one person emailed me and said, God, I'm having no luck with it. So I emailed back and I said, well, how are you fishing it? He goes, well, I'm bouncing it off the bottom. I go, well, what you need to do is swim it slow and steady and as slow as you possibly can to give that tail, the long, wispy, tall tail, the ability to just undulate. Mm-hmm. That's how it was designed. He got back to me and said, oh my God, he said, now it's working. So I want people to say, Bill, what you told me about is great. I put out to my group that I recently had tried the drop shotting and I had some success. I get responses back. Oh yeah, it really works good, but I still love the Ned Rig and the Kalens. But but you talk about big fish. I fished Sturgeon Bay again until 2015, only in the spring. I actually wondered, and Travis, I'm sure you've had some big smallmouth, and I had up until last November, I had a fair number in that 6 to 6.5 pound range. And I actually began to wonder, am I going to, I know the fishery. When people start talking about, make it sound like you can go up there, 5 pounders are a dime a dozen. Hey, you'll get a 6 pounder. And you know what? You might get something bigger. They make it, it's not that way. Mm-hmm. You know who Dale Storshine is. Okay, Dale's in the Freshwater Hall of Fame. He's a great guide. One of maybe the best known guide up there. He's done TV and
absolutely
else. Well, I saw him interviewed a few years ago, and Dale talked about it was 27 years on the water up there before he got his 7+. Mm-hmm. Well, I had sold my previous Yarcraft, and the young kid was going to pick it up on November 9th, a Monday last year. So I'm up there from the day before Election Day, November 2nd, through the 9th. The weather was phenomenal. You're from Wisconsin. I mean, we're talking 50 to 65 every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done like 10,800 smallmouth in Sturgeon, Door County alone. So I've only been skunked 2 days until November 2nd and 3rd. And I could tell it was not good. I was north 3-4 hours, nothing. What the heck? And so I come south to a certain location. And you know what I hate is when I'm out and someone's over there and they're catching fish and I should be and I'm not.
Sure. Right.
Well, this guy, and I have to tell you, your Reel Shot store, this guy happened to be the father of one of the Reel Shot staff members.
Okay.
And he's a good guy. And I said, I said, hey, I got to ask you, what are you using? I said, I'm
Right.
sorry to bother you. Yeah, I normally don't do that, but what the heck?
Sure.
Well, he goes, I'm using a small kind of fat tube, 2.5 inch.
Yeah.
So I had some, and this is a Wednesday. I caught a few more. A little bit better on Thursday, and I ran into the guy at the boat launch at the end of Friday, and he mentioned a certain color, which happens to be this color.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that. A very subpar year was all but forgotten because November 7th, 8th, and 9th, the 50 smallmouth that I caught with 30 4 pounds to my personal best on the Boga grip, 7 1/4. And it was interesting because we're in deeper water, which I've been fishing a little bit late the last 2 years. And our friend Dale Storshine is with clients very close, about 30 yards away. I hold this thing up and I go, Dale, my first 7+.
Right.
If the water temp's 46, I'm trying to get it back in the water quickly. I quickly measured it was 21.5. It was on the Boga grip. So I'm putting this big guy back in the water, and Dale is right there. He said, Bill, I wanted to see it. You know, and I go, Dale, Boga grip. He go, oh man, he said, nice fish. So I thought it was kind of funny because Dale is, a great guide and a good guy, and to have caught my personal best basically the same number of years it took him to catch his 7+. Well, it was interesting with that exact same tube. This was early afternoon on the 7th. The next morning, I did my number 2. It was an inch shorter, and it was 612.
Yeah.
And at that point, I yanked that tube off and decided to save it. And it was just, it was interesting because I'm not a tube guy. And the reason is most of my fishing up there until more recently has been done in shallower water, Travis. And as you know, there is scum on the rocks year round up there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get a real blow, that scum even comes up and gets into the water column.
Yep.
So I've not been a tube guy, even though I've always said, if you can find an area where you're not getting
clean bottom. Yep.
They're great. So that being said, I guess as I now move into this next week and maybe that first week in November before I get the boat winterized, I will be, doing the tubes in deeper water. And it really paid off. And quite honestly, and I there's a lot of great companies out there. Just for the heck of it, do you know Doug Schreiber?
Sounds familiar.
Doug had a TV show and was a guide.
Okay. Yep.
A few years ago from Green Bay, originally from Milwaukee. But anyway, Doug said, Bill, get online and check Right Bite Baits in Batesville, Arkansas. And I did. And I found that their per 10 price on the insert jigs and the tubes was so good that it was almost like I was very surprised. And I know that they make them for third parties. So anyways, I got a box now with some tubes. I'm ready to go. And so, when I head up next week, it'll be the Kitech 2.8. It'll be the Ned Rig. It'll be some drop shotting, and it'll be the tube. It'll be 4 things. And I would think between those 4 things, now that it looks like the temperatures are going to not get ridiculous, but it'll cool a little bit. I'm hoping things pick up. They've not been the best, to be honest.
Sure.
Almost, this year it's been, out on some phenomenally highly rated solar lunar days, and as you know, it's wonderful to cruise around with no wind up there, which rarely happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I would much rather have 3-4 footers than nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. You're on the big water where you guide. So,
All right, guys, some really great information. We're going to take a quick break here. Are you interested in saving money on your fishing tackle or fishing gear purchases? Want to get sponsorship pricing without having to wear a patch on your jersey or wrap your boat for a 20% discount? For me as a guide and a tournament angler, I spend a lot of money on equipment and gear, so every bit helps. I joined the Insiders Club at a site called OutdoorSponsors.com, and I encourage everyone to do so as well. It's a yearly membership. When you sign up, you get 20 to 40% off any brands that they've partnered with. It's super easy. You sign up, you get a code, and I'm actually going to give you a code to get 50% off your first year's subscription. So it's really a no-brainer. They have top brands like Bass Mafia, Rapala, TH Marine, Aquaview, over 80 brands. So head on over to OutdoorSponsors.com and use my code CRUSH50, that's all caps, to save 50% on your first year's membership. Pretty cool deal. Let's get back to the podcast. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because I was going to ask you, I wrote it down here actually. When you went through your cereal bowl of baits, I had tube because I want to ask you, why isn't there a tube in there? And of course, we covered that. Secondly, I want to ask you, I would peg you as an inline spinner guy. Have you ever dabbled with that in these streams? Like, I'm just a little shocked. That's all.
Well, here's the reason, and I'm friends with Mike Sheldon, who has MEPS and Mr. Twister, and I do an event. I started doing it. Unfortunately, I've had to postpone the last 2 years, but a really, some people say it's the best smallmouth event in the country for an evening. It's called Smallie Night Out. I do it in Southeast Wisconsin. It sells out every year at 130 people, which is the max. And Mike provides for my free raffle, which I give away about $7,000 worth of. No one leaves early, but he provides the inline spinners, and they can be absolutely great. And I do have them in my river talk. What I have found, quite honestly, I'm going back to the Kalins. I was just finding swimming the Kalins grub was doing better for me.
Okay. Sure.
And what I do in some of my talks, there are a few other things that as we go back, I remember nose hooking a super fluke, twitch, let it sit. Is that still going to be good? I bet it is. I just haven't used it because other things seem to work better. So I leave a few things in that I say, I used to use this, but I'm finding I use this and get a little better success.
Yeah.
The inline spinners, and you mentioned Little Rivers. I ran into a former tournament guy a month and a half ago who lives in Door County now. He's out there having really good luck with an inline spinner, off the Strawberry Islands up there. Mm-hmm. So I think there are a lot of good things out there that are not just out there to sell a fisherman on buying it. There's a lot of good things that work. And I'm always open to that. And what I've showed you just in the last couple of months with these small swim baits are proof of that. But I should, and I haven't.
Right.
Other things have just seemed to work a little bit better for me.
Believe me, I totally get it. There's not enough time in the day to throw all these different baits. And I'm like you. I go back and forth. I'll stop using something for a year or two, bring it back into the arsenal, and be like, man, this really worked. Why did I stop using it? So
I got to tell you, as you were, I was flashbacking to, Sturgeon Bay, and you're on the big water all the time. And I've been, going back to my first time in the water. Actually, I went with Doug Schreiber with my brother-in-law. It was the very first time I went in May of 1995. And I remember saying to myself, hey, I think I can do this. I mean, my boat wasn't that big, but I think I can do this. But it's funny, in all my days on the water up there, I don't stay out all of every day, but well over 600 days. I've only had the scared out of me one time. And it happened to be 1 year ago. It's like the campfire story. 1 year ago, yesterday, October 13th, we're coming around the point in Ellison Bay, knowing I probably shouldn't have launched at Sister Bay. That's the first time I ever faced 7 and 8 footers that reminded me of the videos I see with the big fishing boats going over backwards.
Right.
So I'm on the water. I'm going to the river yesterday, and you see my Band-Aid. And I'm got one of this is kind of a nice jig for swim baits too, with the fish head. This is that Z-Man fish eyes with the Z on the end. And it's really great, but it's got a pretty big number 1/0 hook. And I'm sharpening, I dinged it. So I'm on my fisherman tool, I'm sharpening it on the groove, and the thing comes flying off. And now at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's embedded in my finger.
Sure.
And it's embedded beyond the barb.
Yep.
And it's straight in. So I can't even push this thing out. So I grabbed my pliers, with my teeth, and I pulled and pulled and pulled. I pulled it out backwards. So I'm thinking, I need to be extra careful when I'm on the water on October 13th. So I haven't got it infected, and it doesn't hurt too bad. So, but yeah, it's, I don't know, the whole thing, smallies are fun. I get asked, and I put up, I'm on a number of sites, and my own Smalley Central, which doesn't have a lot of followers, but on a lot of these sites, small St. Croix enthusiasts, Wisconsin fishing, stuff like this. And, I've had people say, is that all you fish for, is smallmouth bass? And, it's funny. I am not tired of it. I remember on that day in late May of 1994, on Delavan Lake, walleye. I was going to walleye fish. I caught over 100 undersized walleyes, but I caught a dozen of these fish that I assumed were smallmouth bass, and I thought these are pretty cool. And that's, like I said, it was over the next 4 years, to where over those 4 years I caught, I think, just under 900. And it wasn't until 98 where I had that, a 300-400 fish year, and then things began to build. I've not tired of it. They are. But
they are fun. They are fun. A lot of good stuff. Bill, I really appreciate you hanging out with us. I know we're running out of time here. So a couple questions I try to get to with every guest. I'd love to know. I already probably know what the second question I'm going to ask you. I probably already know the answer. I'm sure our viewers do as well. But as far as your personal best, as far as weight, you talked about it. You caught it. What was it exactly?
It was 7 1/4.
7 1/4
on the boga grip. So it wasn't me going, no offense, I wasn't doing my guide thing. Hey man,
sure.
Nice 20-incher. I'm sorry. I can't, if I was a guide, I'd be doing that too. You pull a nice 19-incher out and you go, my God, look at that thing.
Hey, if the client says it's 6 pounds, it's 6 pounds. You don't disagree with them.
I know. I'm just having fun. But
that's a great fish, but you caught a handful of those. As far as number wise, one more time, where are we at?
Okay. And I was going to say, size, because of course, keeping the log, I'm now at about 700 smallies between 4 pounds and 7 1/4.
Gotcha.
I think the percent has gone up in recent years, but I'm at 26,625. And now that I'm getting so darn close to like another big number, I may be focused on trying to hit 27,000 yet this year. And, the year thing, I'm at, just about 2,500, just under 2,500. I could, a few more good days on the river. It'd be kind of cool to hit 3,000 for the year. That would be a little bit of a stretch, but
right.
We'll see.
Now, if I could give you, I'm going to say this is one bait you can use for the following year to try to catch 3,000 fish. What is that bait going to be?
and I hate not to say the Ned Rig.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
I know, but I have to say, I'm probably, because of the rivers.
You have to catch no.
Oh.
You have to catch 3,000 fish like this. You have to, like,
okay,
for $1 million. I don't know.
I'm sticking with like the 2.8 Kitech.
Really?
Because it's been, with the rivers being so rocky, it just drives me crazy to be continuing to have to tie on, another jig, another this or that. I will tell you on the rivers, what I have done is, because the little Z-Man Tube Z is hollow and it's lighter, it is a little better on the rivers because it does, with that light jig, bounce with the current a little better. Whereas the TRD is solid. It gets down there. But I would say one of these swim baits that I talked about, whether it be the slim swims, the 3-inch slim swims, or one of the Kitech, the fat swing, or the swing impact.
Okay. Very good. Wow. Yeah, I can get behind that. We've had quite a few guests this year mention that they would go with a swim bait, Kitech being one of them. 2.8 certainly my go-to color. I'm with you, or size. I'm with you. I started out 3.8s, and I have a bunch of them, and I just don't use them anymore.
3.8s.
Right.
I've got a bag full.
There's nothing, listen, I know they still work. I know guys are still catching them with a 3.8, but I started going with 3.3, whether it be a straight swim bait or maybe on an Alabama rig. And then I've also been dealing a lot with these smaller swim baits like yourself, a 2.8 on a small 1/8 ounce jig head. Seems to be out fishing everything in those sizes.
Travis, and you're a phenomenal angler and guide and communicator. I mean, I'm real impressed with, you're really good behind the microphone, but again, it goes to me literally back to day one with small catches everything. Finesse catches everything. And don't tell me, oh, gee, I'm not going to catch the big fish on finesse. Sorry. I think, once you get out there and do it, you're going to find that small catches everything, big and small.
Yes.
And on the rivers, you have to go small. And, I just think with the pressure on the big water, with the numbers being down, and it's not just bed fishing and tournaments. I'm doing an article next spring, which is going to be the argument for immediate release tournaments, which I'm 100% behind. I've got the key staffer with MLF, plus a number of other key people that will be a part of that article. You take Sturgeon Bay and Door County. A few years ago, we began seeing the open sores. Okay, is this related to a virus? Has that killed fish? Something that has began 3 years ago, especially with fish at the 4-pound and bigger range in cool water. Pull them out of the water, and all of a sudden, there's blood coming down from the gills. And this is a fish that has been caught on a little bitty Ned Rig hook that's in the lip. It's just a problem. So there's a lot of challenges. So I think with maybe numbers being down, fish moving, and the pressure, it only makes sense to go with something that's a little bit more finesse. And I swear, again, I've got a lot of the 3.3 Kitech, which I'm still going to use this fall. But for me, if something, the 2.8 works better, it's sort of, even with the teeny wee crawfish, I remember the next size up, doing just on a river, just kind of swimming them both for a day. It was 10-1. A little guy catching more than the one that was, next size bigger.
That little crankbait's got me intrigued. I wonder how well it would work in the lake setting. What's the dive depth with that? Do you think you can get that down?
2 to 3 feet. And I will tell you, back in the day, when you were probably living in Green Bay, and when there were more schools of smaller fish, I literally can remember spending an hour catching 30 and 40 fish, all small, on the teeny wee crawfish. I also, and I did an article because I'm a follower of Rick Taylor, who's the guru when it comes to solar lunar tables. His are in the rudimentary one is in Bassmaster's every issue, but he gets more detailed. And I did an article with Rick, and then I before I did the article, I wanted to read his book, not just look at his little calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And he noted he'd never given a 100. And I emailed him. I go, Rick, go back and look at June 29th, June 30th, and July 1st of your 2000 or 2001. He emails back. He goes, I did. I gave a 100 on like July 1st that year. Well, I can tell you, Travis, I was out on those 3 days this was before I began using other stuff. So it was a long time ago. I'm out south of Sturgeon Bay, north of Little Sturgeon and Sand Bay. The wind's blowing like crazy. But anyways, I'm out on those 3 days, pretty much only using this and actually a little smaller version of the like a twister tail. I did like 240 smallmouth in 3 days, but I will tell you that there was only one that was bigger than 15 inches.
Sure.
Now, yeah, that was in the day when there weren't as many big fish, but still, I'm using this little guy, and I still remember the third day, I was being blown so hard, I actually put my PFD on, and but so I mean, it for me, years ago, it did work up there. I think now the problem is it doesn't dive deep enough.
Right.
And it does come in a version that's got a bigger build, same size. The deep diving version that's like a 6-7 footer, that might work.
So listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show. If people want to learn a little bit more about yourself or follow you on social media or take part in some of these activities that you have and just keep up with you, what's a good way for them to do that? And we're actually going to put those links down below as well.
I think it's kind of funny. If you would just Google Bill Schultz fishing, it's like a lot of stuff comes up.
Gotcha. Sure.
I mean, some Kalen's videos from years ago, articles and things like that. But if anyone would, want to be on my Smalley group, just SmalleyCentral@gmail.com, SMALLIE Central@gmail.com. And I do, probably 25, 30 emails a year. And I taught in more recent ones, I've talked about these little swim baits. I think it's worthwhile because I got people that are not just in Wisconsin and Northern Illinois on my group. And I do have the Smalley Central page on Facebook.
Okay.
That's another possibility. But I just say, emailing me and getting on my my group is a good one.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, listen, Bill, thanks for joining us today. A lot of great information.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. It was really nice seeing you. Thank you so much. You got a great show.
Awesome. Thank you. And as always, guys, until next time, we'll see you on the water.
Thanks so much for listening today. Make sure that you're subscribed to the show and follow us on Instagram at SmallmouthCrush. Also, the YouTube channel, Smallmouth Crush. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and comment with a review below. And as always, until next time, we'll see you on the water.